Spiky Bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches. Help keep our channel ad-free by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today. What's up, Hobby Maniacs? Rob Baer here today with another fantastic 40K flashback. Today we're going to take a look at the Eavy Metal, not to be confused with heavy metal of the 1980s rock and roll movie fame, I suppose, painting guide. I guess this is circa like 1993, 1994, right around the time of second edition, where it wasn't exactly common knowledge on how to paint your models. Like, you had to find the wizard in the store, and then you had to like do a quest for him, like buy him a Chinese food buffet, so that you could learn the secrets from this guy. Because there was no internets, there was just like books, and books were expensive. Why spend money on books when you can buy miniatures, right? But this guy came out and it was actually pretty affordable, and I picked it up and up to my paint game. There was also no YouTubes as well. You couldn't get no Yo Dog videos to check out to teach you how to paint, or any of the other great tutorial artists out there. So it's about a 100-page book. It's by hobby guru Mike McVeigh, which of course has grown up into a beautiful hobby butterfly that now has his own company. Worked for Privateer, obviously worked for GW, but he's been around the block and done a lot of great things for all of the tabletop hobby as a whole. So kudos to Mike, of course. Here you can see some of the miniatures that they show you how to paint. They cover each faction in here, which is really cool, and they give you like a step-by-step guide. Like, this is one of the most comprehensive, like, kind of how to paint books that they ever came out with. Now, they came out with the Spiral one later on in like 2011, I want to say, and that one was pretty good too. But I mean, there was definitely a good like 20-year gap between the books. There really wasn't a comparable product, I feel like. So this one, I always referred back to it, actually, especially for gemstones, for Eldar, to get that good paint scheme there. So taking a look at it here, you can kind of see the contents. There's a picture of OG Mike McVeigh, circa 1990s. I can only imagine how some of us would look in the 1990s if we saw some of our pictures. I know I look a little bit different, at least in the hairstyling, I suppose. So here's all the contents here, and you can see Space Marines, Orcs, and then they go into the sub-factions and show you how to paint those too. And then they kind of group a lot of stuff together here at the end, like the Tyranids and Chaos, the Squats, the Imperial, which is like assassins, and they have some of the judges, the RBDs as well. And then it gets this great section in the back here, like all the banners that you can make photocopies of, cut out, and kind of make for yourself, which I thought was pretty sweet. Now, another thing that us veterans definitely probably remember is, putting the models together themselves. The plight was real. Now, we didn't have to do quite as many as you do these days, so having all the stuff in plastic is definitely kind of a boon, I feel like. But right here they're like, hey, put this guy together, and all of these parts were an amalgam of pewter and plastic almost. So you have these pewter parts here, and then they had the plastic arms, which you could make a whole bunch of different styles, which was really cool and cost effective for Games Workshop back in the day. And here you can see kind of how it goes along right there. And then they always tell you to drill out the bolters. And then for the heavy weapons, you had a drill, because it was a pewter part right here, right, that went on top of a plastic kind of assembly. So it was always good to drill it out and pin it, so it didn't just like fall off. Now nowadays, Forge Roll at first emulated that kind of design, but now they've kind of gone back and they have the kind of like the underslung kind of deal for most of the guys too. Another cool feature of the day was these little weapon sprues, where you could cut off the little bolt pistols, or you could cut off the chain swords or power swords. Right here you can see that is two different colors plastic, because what you did was you cut off the little handle and then you positioned it however you want. So there was a lot of customizing from in this middle gap, this like 1990s around second era, going from Rogue Trader to a full-on kind of larger scale tabletop game. There was a lot of conversions, and that's really where it really started rising. That's when I got really into it, because you could kind of make stuff and you made it your own. And of course we saw where that escalated to the pretty much completely multi-part plastic kits of today. And here's a cool little diorama. I'm sure Mike McVeigh had something to do with it, where you can see a lot of the miniatures of the day. You've got the old round plastic top Predator that was in production only for a few years. We didn't actually see it that long. I think they replaced it right around 3rd edition time. So it was out for, I want to say, like maybe 5-6 years, but in the scheme of Warhammer, that's really not a whole lot of time, to be quite honest. So really cool stuff there. And then it gets into painting Space Marines, and they show you the theory, you know, to highlighting and everything, like the raised edges, you know, the zenithal, or the just like the sun highlighting. Here's how to do, you know, the eyes and everything like that. And they didn't have like washes and things back then. They had inks, and so there really wasn't a lot of the products available today that there were back then. So, you know, nowadays I would just hit this with a white and just hit it with a, you know, a drop of a glaze, and it would get like a red glaze, and it would get all in there. And then maybe I would put a dot of white in the corner right there. But, you know, if you're doing assembly line and you just want to get your stuff on the tabletop, that's a great alternative, and then come back and finish them up. And it goes through step by step, you know, for each faction basically. And here you can see basically how to highlight black, which it's very dulled down grays generally. So, you know, you got all the Blood Angels, you got your Dark Angels, and then they go into, and they tell you the step by step. They tell you the actual colors, you know, and everything. And a lot of these colors have been retired, or I guess replaced. Like Snakebite Leather right here was one of my favorites from back in the day, and I don't think it's currently available. I know the Vallejo variety of it is called Bubonic Brown, and that's definitely a staple of my my hobby paint palette there. And then it gets into more and more stuff, you know, Dark Angels, other Space Marine chapters, Legions of the Damned, and then they give you, you know, some ideas, some tips and things right there. So, I mean, you're already halfway through the book, well, a third of the way. It's about page 30, and it's pretty much Space Marines. Then it gets to like the Orcs, and here you can see, you know, another great layout. You know, this whole like a huge like diorama kind of thing was really inspiring back in the day, because you didn't really see this wasn't what Rogue Trader was. And then, you know, getting into 2nd edition, seeing this was the idea for 2nd edition, to sell miniatures, sell more and more miniatures, and play these bigger games, which was great. I really like that old Orc battle wagon. I like that better than the current one, actually. And you know, I'm really sad that you can't quite find as many of those around today as you used to. So they go through all the Orc factions and how to paint them. And, you know, the Snakebites are of course the feral Orcs kind of deal, and they got all that, the freebooters and all the different factions in here. And it's a great resource for painting those guys. And then you get to the back and you see Eldar, and it goes through each faction, and, you know, one by one explains how to paint. You know, like I said, it's a very great all-encompassing kind of guide. And then of course all of the aspect warriors as well, the Avatar himself, which was an amazing model when this first came out. You know, you saw the Screamer Killer for the Tyranids, and then which ended up being the Carnifex, and then you saw this guy, and this guy's like, oh my god, it's so cool, you know. And then how to paint like lava and things like that. Like, this was the showcase of a lot of collector and hobbyists, like, you know, basically collection and painting prowess. Was if you could paint the Avatar, you know, you were the shit back then. Then it gets into Harlequins, Warlocks, and Farseers, you know, all the factions there. The old Wraith Knight, or Wraith Lord rather. Then it gets into the Imperial Guard, and these are the old plastics. You might not have seen these before, but those are the old little plastic dudes. And then all the different agents, the old Commissar Yarrick right there, some old Ogren. You know, it's really cool to see the flashback of these Imperial agents before they became the Assassins. The Assassins originally were released as a downloadable book, or a downloadable supplement. Actually, it wasn't downloadable. It was included in the White Dwarf. I want to say right around 1996, 97, came out in a White Dwarf in 2nd edition, and they re-released it in 3rd edition in the White Dwarf as well, just I think right around the turn of the millennia, around 2000. So both of those, now of course we have a dedicated Assassins kind of resource, I guess, with that box set. And there's some squats, very cool stuff. Then it gets into the Tyranids, which was pretty limited for back in the day. You know, you had the cultists and the hybrids and things. There's the Screamer Killer. That guy was a monstrosity. I think he was like $50 back in the day, man. He was expensive. This is a really cool, neat piece of terrain right here. It was like this, the original like Tower of Skulls or whatever, by Armorcast. They actually produced that. You can't. It's very hard to find these days, but you know, you can still find them out there. The old Juggernaut, the old Cobra kind of pattern Dreadnought. These old pewter Berserkers. You really don't see any of these miniatures anymore out there. The old super colorful Thousand Suns. I remember thinking, man, I love these Thousand Suns models, but I'd never paint them like that. That's just too many colors. The cool like Bloodthirsters that were little like kind of hunchback kind of guys and all the little demons here. And then it gets to the back where all the banners were, and you can, you know, cut these out, print them out on new paper, make copies, whatever you wanted to do, and use these banners on the back of your models. And they even put like this kind of like faux kind of marble print on the back here, so you could you know, if you just put it on your models just like this, it would have a backing to it, which I thought was pretty neat. So overall, I mean, this book, I want to say it was like 20 or 30 bucks when it first came out, and it's a, you know, it was a really good resource back then. It's still a really good resource today if you can find one used. There's a lot of good solid color theory in here, and a lot of the colors in here still match up, and you can find conversion guides online, still match up to some of the stuff that Vallejo puts out. So if you see a color scheme you like, chances are it can be emulated, or you can just Google, hey, what color is, you know, ... and you can probably find a really good comparison to it, because we have those resources today. You don't have to bribe the local painting guy to with a Chinese food buffet to help teach you how to paint, and then all he teaches you dry brushing. But dry brushing is pretty amazing. Let's not get it twisted. If you can dry brush and you're just starting out, well, it's like the hobby world is your oyster, I feel like. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed my retro flashback of the old Warhammer 40k painting guide, the Eavy Metal Painting Guide from 1994.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.